MapleStory is a game that I hold fairly close to my heart. It's a game that I never really stopped playing, despite its flaws and its incredible age. Wait, how old is MapleStory again? Let's just check real quick. Oh, am I old now? Anyway, I would take breaks here or there, even a year or two at a time sometimes, but eventually I would come back to it in some form or another. Growing up, I played a lot of video games. My father introduced them to me when I was just a wee bab. My first ever memory was actually playing Super Mario 3 with my dad. We were both sitting in this big beanbag chair, just trying to beat it together. So, naturally, growing up through elementary school, I would often bond with the other kids through, of course, playing video games. My friends and I would take turns inviting each other over to play games, and eventually, sometime in elementary school, I was shown RuneScape. And that shit blew my mind as a kid. It was the first time I'd experienced anything like that. Playing video games over the internet with my friends for free? Hello, this is amazing. I'm a dope knight with a big ass sword and dope armor, and I kill goblins and I go on quests. But the fun could only last so long, since you can only do so much as a free-to-play player. And I definitely couldn't convince my parents to buy me membership as a kid, because it's a subscription. And I was baby. So my appetite for a new free-to-play MMO was ready. And that's when my stepsister found a new game called MapleStory. We began playing in around 2005 when the game first came to North America. I remember my first character being a warrior because I wanted to keep making cool knights with cool swords like in RuneScape. I imagine a lot of people's experiences with MapleStory are pretty similar. Being very young and impressionable and playing whatever free game they could get their grubby little gamer hands on. So people have this incredible feeling and nostalgia towards old school MapleStory, the same way they do towards old school RuneScape. They felt it so hard towards RuneScape that the devs went and made a separate version of RuneScape called Old School RuneScape. And just like RuneScape, MapleStory has changed quite a bit over the years. Being one of the players that has played this game off and on throughout the years, I've got to see it in many different forms. It has evolved in ways that no one could have really predicted, and it had quite a few bad times. But these days the game is actually in a pretty good place, and I would genuinely recommend that people would play it. So today, we're going to take a look back on MapleStory, a game of peaks and valleys. MapleStory is a 2D action side-scrolling MMORPG, originally developed by Wizit, but now published by Nexon. Being an MMORPG, you have to create a character before you can actually start playing. When creating a character in MapleStory, you must first select a class. Some being starting classes that eventually branch off, like the Explorers, while others are less of classes and more of characters in-universe that you actually get to play as, like the heroes. The classes range from a standard warrior who swings a big two-handed sword, to a thief so skilled he's able to steal the abilities from the other Explorer classes and use them as his own. Despite the variety of classes and playstyles, they all fall within 5 overarching umbrellas that encompass each class. Those being Warrior, Bowman, Magician, Thief, and Pirate. These umbrella classifications determine which stat increases your damage, those stats being Strength, Dexterity, Intelligence, and Luck. Speaking of doing damage, the combat in the game revolves around using the skills you accrue as you level to deal damage to enemies, with very tight movement to get you to and from each enemy. And it's a good thing that the combat is so enjoyable too, because it's basically all you're going to be doing from level 1 to 300. Oh yeah, did I mention that the max level is fucking 300? Jesus fucking Christ. You're going to be doing a lot of grinding in this game. Like a lot. Playing MapleStory is the equivalent of a more interactive cookie clicker game. You press button, numbers happen, the good numbers go up, and then your brain releases the happy chemicals. To give Nexon credit, they make the escalation of power very satisfying. You go from a total jabroni harassing snails to a highly lethal master of your class capable of killing God. Now that you have a basic understanding of the game and how it plays, let's talk about those peaks and valleys that I mentioned, because oh boy does this game have some peaks and valleys. Let's first talk about the gameplay. Truly this game's tallest peak. Since this game has been out for roughly 1 million years, Nexon has had the time and opportunity to really refine and improve the second-to-second gameplay. It's actually the absolute biggest seller for the game, in my opinion. Just hitting monsters with each class is fun, but how each class hits the monsters is where the real fun begins, because each and every one of these classes genuinely feel unique. Even if there is some overlap in skills and abilities, they still feel different to play. This is partially done through the theme of the class, but also done through the skills that you learn along the way while leveling up. And with
47, 49
classes, 2 of which are usually just locked behind a limited time creation event, Beast Tamer and Zero, that's a genuinely impressive feat. My personal favorite classes are Dark Knight, Aran, and Wind Archer. Dark Knight makes you feel like an unkillable, immovable titan on the battlefield. Even if your health were to drop to 0, you enact a pact with death to stay alive in exchange for killing a certain amount of enemies. Aran is an unstoppable force, swinging through the map. Highly mobile when mastered, they are an AoE god. If you asked an Aran to hit just one enemy in a crown, they'd say, I don't understand. Meanwhile, Wind Archers feel like a delicate, graceful archer that cosplays as a mobile SAM site. You hurl gusts of wind along with a flurry of arrows, which all have an additional chance to fire even more arrows to easily overwhelm any of your opponents. The range of skill required for each class can be different too. Some classes have a very easy entry point to play well. Meanwhile, others have an insane max skill ceiling that offers the highest theoretical DPS in the game. And the shining example of that is the Blaster class, whose most dedicated players have sacrificed their hands' very well-being at the altar of DPS to ascend past what was possible. As Wind Archer, I only press one button to do my main DPS. I use the spacebar because it's the biggest button, so it does the biggest damage. But what's the point of having insane DPS if you don't have a punching bag to use it on? That's where all the bosses in this game come in. There are a multitude of boss fights that range in complexity. Some are bosses where your only real goal is to not get hit by the telegraphed attack, while others require you to use teamwork to lure certain boss mechanics away from the other players so they can do their full DPS bursts. I personally haven't gotten strong enough to access the later game content like Lotus and Damien, even though they're not even that late game. But, from watching videos and hearing others talk about it, the boss fights seem like genuinely challenging tasks that take focus and teamwork in order to take down. But getting to the point where you can clap the cheeks of all those bosses is where I find a lot of the fun. The escalation of power in MapleStory is very well tuned. As I mentioned before, you really start the game as a total schmuck who can barely handle the local pests, and slowly grow your powers and skills until you're a highly capable, highly lethal master of your class. To give you an idea of this escalation of both power and theming, let's take a ride on one of my other favorite classes, the Dawn Warrior. Dawn Warrior's main theme is your soul and how it relates to the sun and moon. Your start as a Dawn Warrior is pretty modest. Your starting attacking skill is called Triple Slash. It's more of a martial arts move that's taught to newbies that isn't really anything impressive. But as you progress towards your second job advancement, you're taught the importance of one half of the soul, the moon. Using this understanding, you're able to enter the falling moon stance, which alters your abilities to be more swift and graceful. You begin to acquire skills that speak more to your soul, things like inner harmony and divine hand. Dawn Warrior's second job is all about speed and elegance. Your main attacking skill doesn't even face you at the enemy, so you're forced to develop your movement ability to account for it. Then, eventually, when you hit your third job advancement, you're taught the other half of the soul, the sun. Third job and rising sun stance are both about power and strength. While in sun stance, you're able to deal significantly more damage, and your skills are more about raw damage output and reach. You'll find, however, that you can't be in both sun and moon stance at the same time. So, you have to choose which stance is more valuable at the time and place that you're using it. At this point, the theming of the class is starting to shine, and you're feeling what it means to be a Dawn Warrior. Finally, when you reach 4th job advancement, you're starting to achieve true mastery of your class. You're learning that the sides of the soul, being sun and moon, need to be in constant harmony in order to be truly strong. So, you acquire a skill that lets you gain the benefit of both stances at once, while cycling between them as you attack. You are now an Equinox. This is where the class feels like you're an omnipotent master of your own body and soul. You now dance between the stances, dealing incredible damage and rarely feeling the downside of either of them. Eventually in 4th job, you gain access to hyper skills, which are the cherry on top. The main one Dawn Warriors get is called Styx Crossing. Using this skill allows you to channel the energy from your soul into your sword and release it in one massive swing. Truly, now you're a master of your soul. Haha, just kidding. At level 200, you can ascend to the 5th and final job. At this point, you're actually a true master of your class, and the skills you get in 5th job prove it. These skills are fucking dope. Equinox was just the beginning. Now, with Celestial Dance, you can activate it to have a mirror of yourself in the opposite stance swinging simultaneously with you. That's right, Dawn Warriors get a type of shadow partner that's even cooler and more thematic. Rest in peace, Phantom, no shadow partner. The other skill in 5th job that makes my soul scream with power is Rift of Damnation. With this skill active, your Styx Crossing no longer has a cooldown, and you're able to swing that thing non-stop. You swing it hard and fast enough now that you tear a hole in space, and with enough swings, you rupture it. This is what I mean when I say the escalation of power in this game is amazing. Not just because numbers go up, so it better, but thanks to the theming and design of the actual skills, you feel so much stronger than you were before. Unfortunately, the valley that follows the genuinely good gameplay is that it's kind of the only meaningfully engaging content in the entire game. Any story you may experience is often separated considerably by gaps where you just have to level up a bunch in order to get to the next story pieces. All the secondary and tertiary systems like fishing and crafting are almost a joke. I'm pretty sure fishing was actually completely removed from the game because nobody gave a shit about it. Like, sure, crafting gives you access to a ring that is a best-in-slot item, but the absolutely laborious task of getting to the point where you can actually craft it is just painful. The crafting system uses a stamina mechanic that prevents you from just spending a lot of time and grinding out levels. Which is weird because that's the entire point of the fucking game when you're leveling up otherwise. Stamina mechanics like these in games that just straight up prevent you from playing in it or participating in it are fucking dog shit. It just doesn't make any sense or serve any real purpose other than to get you to shell out real money to buy their stamina potions to keep using their stupid fucking system. To compound how horrible the stamina system is, you very quickly find out you don't always have a 100% chance to make the item you're trying to make. Imagine spending the time and effort to level up to gain access to making an item, and also going through the task of collecting all the resources necessary to craft it. Then you fail a 70% chance, and now you're out of stamina. So try again tomorrow, loser! Oops, did I say RNG? Because Nexon sure does love their RNG-based item progression in this damn game. Virtually every single system involved in upgrading yourself or your gear revolves around RNG. From cubing to scrolling, from Star Force to Hidden Potential, each one of these is just a roll of the dice. Some are significantly more kind than others. Like, Star Forcing at early levels are basically just a straight exchange of mesos to power. But not all of these systems are created equally. Getting a good or even usable line of potential on a piece of gear is a complete and utter dice roll. It's like finding a needle in a haystack by shoving your hand in and pulling something out at random. Eventually, you'll find something that's good, but me with my god-awful luck, I never really do. There's a dark side to some upgrade systems, however. Eventually, in the Star Force upgrading line, there's not just a chance for it to fail and not tier up, there's a chance for it to fail and tier down. And even further past that, at higher levels, there's a chance for it to fail and just be destroyed. The destruction of your item is called booming by the MapleStory community, and some players have completely quit the game after booming a piece of their late game gear. Famously, Jin from BTS actually quit playing MapleStory after booming an item that only had a 0.7% chance to boom. Do you remember those stats that I mentioned earlier? Strength, dexterity, intelligence, and luck? Well, each class in the game has a primary stat, and when increased, it increases their damage. Except for Demon Avengers. They want HP, so their real goal is to be thick. Additionally, each class has a secondary stat that they want. For example, a Dark Knight would want Strength as their primary and Dex as their secondary. But all secondary stats do is increase damage at a significantly worse rate than your primary. There used to be a prevalent game mechanic called accuracy, that if your secondary stat wasn't high enough, you just straight up miss some of your attacks. Unfortunately, that game mechanic doesn't exist at all anymore. You can still miss if you have a certain debuff on you, but missing is basically a complete thing of the past. This has made interesting builds where you have to try and balance what stats you get completely and totally irrelevant. All you want is your main stat, and that's pretty much it, because all the stats do is increase your damage. This isn't a terribly important point, I'll admit, but it certainly feels like a missed opportunity, doesn't it? Why even have named stats like dexterity and strength in the first place if they don't serve a real purpose? All they actually do is water down the pools for good rolls on item potentials. As another tiny little small thing, when you level up, you're given AP points to put into your stats. Or you can press the auto-assign button to put it all into your main stat directly. But since there's literally no point in putting stats in anything other than your main, I wonder why they even ask us in the first place. Since the game has been around for quite some time, some of the classes are actually several years old. Occasionally, they'll get a visual update, and some old skills will be removed. Rest in peace, Assassin's Avenger. Never forget, some of those skills that have stuck around unchanged could use a visual update, or a sound design one. The biggest one that I can think of is Hurricane, Bowmaster's 4th job skill. It was absolutely awesome back in the day. But these days, the sounds and the visuals just don't cut it. For example, let's compare Hurricane with Wind Archer's equivalent skill, Song of Heaven. With Song of Heaven, there's just so much more oomph to it, while Hurricane makes me feel like I'm rapid-firing cooked spaghetti noodles at somebody. I actually took too long making this video, and the Destiny update came out, and that update changed all of the Explorer classes, updating a lot of visuals, including Hurricanes. I imagine now it is significantly better than they used to be. Some of the skills that have also stuck around all these years aren't very good. Not in terms of this skill does bad damage, so it sucks, but in terms of this skill is so utterly boring, I have a hard time arguing it should exist in the first place. There's some that are early level skills that just increase your raw stats, but they're pretty inconsequential and they make sense for your character's theming. The actually bad one in my mind is Final Attack, which is predominantly seen on the 3 Explorer Warriors. Final Attack's main purpose is to have a chance to trigger an additional attack on an enemy that you've already hit. But fish, I hear you say. Isn't that all Wind Archer does, one of your favorite classes? You're not wrong. Wind Archer is basically Final Attack the class, but Wind Archer's Final Attack functions extremely differently from the ways the other ones do. On paper, Final Attack sounds cool, like you're so skilled with your weapon that you're able to sneak in extra attacks when you see the opportunity. But Final Attack's animation does not in any way sell this idea of a final blow. The animation is so minor, most people probably don't even notice it happening. And while it certainly does contribute to your overall DPS, I kinda wish it just was replaced with anything else, like a phantom version of your weapon flashing in to strike before disappearing. I have a gripe that might honestly just be a personal thing. There are some skills in the game that create something big and then it attacks for you instead of the attack stemming from your actual character. For example, Bowmaster's 4th job skill, Arrow Stream. When you activate this skill, you summon 3 massive bows that attack in front of you. Yeah, it's flashy, but wasn't I supposed to be the Bowmaster? Whose bows are these? They don't look like mine. These types of attacks always feel super lame to me. I don't want something to show up and do the work for me. unless that's like the point of the class, like Kana. I want to shoot the arrows. I want to swing this sword. I want to throw the big kunai. I don't want it to just show up and do the work while I'm doing a little dance or something, while the real action's happening. It actually has prevented me from enjoying some classes entirely. I really want to love Night Lord from the bottom of my heart, but the main mobbing skill is just so lame. I like the theming of the class and how they use scrolls and talismans to have different effects, but this one just doesn't do it for me. Why not have it be a two-staged attack, where the first part is you throwing the scrolls, and then the second part is you throwing something that detonates it. Same thing with Xenon. Wait, Xenon? Up until your 4th job advancement as Xenon, you're given a very cool adaptive sword attack that you can change to suit the situation. And it's all based on Xenon's very cool sword that's also part whip. And then, in 4th job, your main attacking skill that has the adaptive part of it isn't a sword attack. Some little shit just shows up in various vehicles and shoots stuff for you. Wow, thanks! I thought I would get to be cool and powerful, but I'm glad someone else gets to show up and do my work for me. Most, if not all, of the skills in the game are functionally pretty boring too. Which is a shame, because there are some skills in the game that give you hope that Nexon could come up with something more interesting than press button to make an ouchie zone. My favorite skill that shows this glimmer of hope is Dark Knight's 2nd job skill, Piercing Dive. It has 2 hitboxes, instead of just one massive one, that have different functions. The tip of the hitbox has increased damage, while the base of the hitbox has increased critical chance. The skill requires precision in order to get the hitbox that you actually want, kind of like a spear. The weapon the class is based around. I mean, realistically, the tip should have the crit chance, and the pole should have, like, knockback, but they're trying, and you have to give them credit on that, even if they somehow managed to fuck this one up too. Okay, before I move on from the valley part of the gameplay segment, let's talk about booster skills in MapleStory. Nearly every single class in the game has a booster skill that just literally increases your attack speed. That's it. And isn't that kind of just boring? Like, there's just no real reason for it. If every class in the game has it, then it's not very unique or interesting, is it? Each class doesn't have a variation of it that fits their theme. They are functionally completely identical. Booster skills should be removed entirely from the game, and the attack speed you would be getting should instead be tied to your mastery. That makes a lot of sense, right? As your character's mastery of the class goes up, you should be able to move faster and attack faster as you're more comfortable with the abilities. As you've probably noticed by now, the game goes with a pixel art style for pretty much everything. Visually, these days they have a very solid grasp on their style. And whenever new content is released, it's usually very easy on the eyes. Even the older maps and areas all tend to have a cohesive theme and style that they explore the potential of. My personal favorite area in the game is Ludibrium. The place is basically Legoland. The whole area is this island suspended by 2 massive pillars, and all the enemies are toys of some kind. But as you head into the depths of the island, things start getting strange. There's a mysterious corruption spreading from the very depths of this place.
What a thrill.
A crack in time is affecting the things that live here and changing them. It's super cool. And generally, a lot of the areas in the game explore all kinds of themes, from an entirely underwater area called Aqua Road, to a war-torn snowy castle whose tyrant leader lives at the center. There's also quite a few good NPC designs that dot the landscape. From monsters to quest givers, there's plenty of them to go around. With each new class comes a slew of amazing skill animations. Each class has its own visual style and colors to represent them too. From the tropical ocean blues of Thunderbreakers to the royal golds of Phantoms. My personal favorites for their visual style alone have to be Kana and Adele. Kana's skill animations actually break from the norm for most of MapleStory's animations, and have this unique, otherworldly style to them, just to emphasize the fact that Kanas use spirits to fight. It's quite fun to see a Kana do their work and summon their array of spirits. This visual splendor is shared with Adele especially. Once the class gets high enough level, it's honestly just mesmerizing to sit there and watch the Adele go. And finally, the cosmetic items in the cash shop are all pretty nice. They all help you really personalize. Wait, do you hear something? What is that? Oh shit! Speaking of what I'm pretty sure is the one and only thing keeping Nexon afloat, the cash shop. The cash shop is both a boon and a curse. Mostly a curse, though. As I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted. The cosmetic items you can get in there are genuinely very well made and cute as heck. They often also take community submissions for some pieces, so that's actually really nice too. You can make yourself look as cute or as uncute as you want, but at a price. And that price is every gamer's favorite thing: loot boxes. That's right, Nexon was thinking to itself one day, gee, I wonder how we get even more RNG into our funny mushroom game, and came to the brilliant conclusion of just straight up gambling. For kids! Unless you are buying the old, dated, and honestly kinda ugly cosmetics that are listed individually, you're going to have to gamble on a loot box in order to try and get the item you actually want. Not to mention the fact that the boxes are all limited time exclusive, so you have to keep spending till you get your item, or else you may lose the opportunity to get it for who knows how long. This includes face and hairstyles too, by the way. You want to look cute? That will be $1 million, please. Maybe. Who knows? You might get what you want on your first pull. But in reality, you're going to spend a lot of fucking money on this game just trying to put a semi-decent outfit together. I, admittedly, am not very aware of the best writing in MapleStory, for reasons I'll get into in a bit later. However, from what I've heard from friends, the writing in MapleStory has improved quite a bit in the past handful of years, with some genuinely good character writing too. And since every new class that comes out these days has their own storyline, you get to experience that good writing in a multitude of topics, such as how human is an android, and help, I'm gay, I think, and maybe a turncoat in the past? Unfortunately, generally speaking, MapleStory's writing is hot, stinky garbage. Big, smelly poo-poo bad. Really yucky, gross, I'm gonna vomit bad. Whenever they actually want to try, they do a good job and the writers earn their pay. But the other stuff that fills up the rest of the game, yikes, dude. They really did not try at all. You're exposed to the horrible writing pretty much from the start when you choose an explorer. The writing varies from passable to just utterly stupid. For example, as an explorer, the first person that you talk to is Mai, and she is supposed to be the person to teach you the ropes and explain how to exist in MapleStory. But apparently, she's so fucking dense that she doesn't understand what part of a sword you're supposed to hold. Like, obviously this is a joke. Haha, stupid person is dumb. Everybody point and laugh. But it's so painfully stupid in itself, with no setup, that is just insulting to your own intelligence. Like, cool, my tutor has so few functioning brain cells that they can't understand what part of a sword to hold, when 90% of it is the ouchy side, and 10% is literally designed to be held. Yeah, great tutor, Nexon, thanks. For a long time, an incredible amount of the writing in MapleStory is either so neutral in quality that it's basically not even there, or it was so fucking bad you can actively feel your brain cells dying after you force them to read such dribble. It was so bad that since that era, I have basically had such little desire to read anything written in the game that I just hold down the continue button when talking to people, so it just automatically skips everything and goes straight to the end. They have effectively ruined any potential story they've written, for me, pretty much forever. Nothing really exemplifies the garbage era in MapleStory better than the Alliance Unbound event, or as I like to call it, the Aliens event. The style of writing from this event can be summarized in one word: stupid. The kind of stupid you feel from watching content that's aimed at children, where the creators don't actually respect the intelligence of children, so they just write XD so random bullshit instead. This event was so utterly terrible that the main alien mob literally didn't even have a dying animation. Meanwhile, other mobs from the area play their dying animation at the exact same time. That's the level of quality we're talking about with this era of MapleStory. I can't really explain to you the absolute depths of the stupidity on display here, so I'm just going to show you a couple of examples. We'll once again follow the footage uploaded when this came out, back in 2012. For the first of my 2 examples of just how stupid the writing is, we skip to the part of the story where our character is freeing some citizens of NLC from aliens who have captured them. When you approach this cage with a literal Elvis impersonator in it and click on it, he says, "Help! I yelled at some aliens about digging without a permit and they nabbed me! I don't deserve this!" Do you see what I mean when I say XD so random levels of writing? They chose to have the reason this person got imprisoned by aliens was because they yelled at an alien for digging without a permit. This is supposed to be a joke. Haha, what a silly and random reason to be thrown in jail. And this almost works as a joke since humor is about playing with expectations, and that's why being random is so tempting to use as a joke. But the problem is that this isn't a single instance of a character being dumb for a laugh. All of the writing for this questline is exactly like this. And when all characters are stupid all of the time, then there isn't really a joke. You didn't play with my expectations for what this person would say. You've prepped me with the writing I've seen so far to know that every single person is a complete and utter moron for no reason. So, I thought they would do something mind-numbingly dumb, and then they did. This is already very bad by itself, but it's compounded when you find out that literally all of the imprisoned citizens say the exact same thing. So it's not just stupid. It has an extra layer of copy-pasted levels of laziness too. Next, we'll skip just a little farther to when we're caught freeing the 5th and final citizen. When caught, we're thrown into a very similar cell, deep within the alien's facility. We do have a guard outside our cell named Glorp, the guard. I do actually like their name. It sounds like some dumb shit I would make up. Anyway, we're able to talk to them in order to progress through the quest. Ignoring the painfully stupid thing that Glorp says right off the bat, we are given 3 options to say to try and get us out of here. Upon picking the obvious choice, you apologize and ask to be let free. Then, Glorp just does. He just lets us free. For real, that's it. You basically just go, "I'm sorry," and he just lets you go. My first example was to show how they failed to write a joke, which is by itself not easy to do. But this is just a failure on every level. It is functionally broken and utterly pointless. There is no reason for us to get captured at all if it was solved by us effectively just saying, "Let me out," and then being let out. It is insulting to read this absolute garbage. So this is why I don't read anything in MapleStory anymore. They've ruined anything they could write by just spitting in my face with this drivel. So yeah, the garbage era was truly wretched. That was
Old.
over 10 years ago.
Old. Getting old, dude.
10 years ago?
You old fuck. Old. I never
10
been caught dead being old.
10 years?
Old.
10 fucking years has gone by?
Old. Another birthday, another wasted year. Old. I am a zoomer and I am flossing to how old you are.
Hey there. I know in reality that 27 isn't really that old, but these days it really does feel like it. I've got to watch my own body degrade due to age. I have a bad back that regularly gives me trouble. My poor hands have been playing video games nonstop for as long as I can remember, and I'm really feeling the repercussions for that. I probably have carpal tunnel syndrome or something similar. The last time I stopped playing MapleStory wasn't because of uninterest. No, it was because my hands hurt too much, too often. So, I quit. Time keeps going and going. Sometimes I wish I could just pause things and take a break from existing. But time will just keep going, and I'll just have to keep playing catch up. And once I turned 26, I was no longer on my mother's insurance. So I had to fend for myself in this nightmarescape that is living in America. Just one of my depression medications costs $200 as their base cost. I've truly begun feeling the weight of the world, the cost of existing. I imagine a lot of MapleStory's players are a lot like me. We're getting older and we've been around the block a few times, but we always come back to MapleStory as a comfort game that brings us so much nostalgia. Despite my gripes with it, I do believe MapleStory has some genuine and good parts to it. But I'll let the other me take care of that explanation. Thank you so much for watching and for listening.
Geez, sorry about that. Did you guys see that weird, greasy, sad person too? Well, back to the video. I think I was talking about nostalgia. Every time I listen to the gentle strings of the login screen's music, it brings me incredible comfort. It reminds me of this game and of a simpler time. Mixed with the nostalgia, I have this concept of the game that's far outside of the game itself. This sort of mythology of the game. Of chasing after the legendary players. Tiger, Sushi, Curry is Hot, Fangblade. I look upon the weapons they used with such reverence. They mean more to me than just the stats they provide. The social aspect of the game has helped develop this mythology around items and stories in ways that the developers never intended. They live on, even when the content it was a part of is removed. Steelies will always be connected with super cool assassins who are so much stronger than I was. Fair Frozen will always be the legendary spear used by the long-lost Tiger. An animator by the name of Dre86 has been a part of this community for quite some time, and has been making an animated series called Maple Combat. It is the definition of the outside of the game mythos for MapleStory. The main characters are his Maple avatar, as well as the legendary players that he knew personally. It helps give each and every item they use or show this higher status, this special air that reminds you of your nostalgia for the game. If you play MapleStory, or have played MapleStory, I highly recommend you watch his videos. You can really watch his talent as an animator improve over time, and that's something truly special. Nostalgia can be a powerful thing. Few games out there have a legacy like MapleStory, mostly because they are rarely kept alive by the developers and their communities for as long as a game like MapleStory or RuneScape has. MapleStory was fortunate enough to survive this long and to have a loyal following, and at some point the developers knew that because they made a few additions to the game that nod towards players like me. Firstly, they have enthroned the legendary players that reached level 200 first, the previous max level of the game, as permanent fixtures. Next to each of the main job instructors for the explorers stands a capital L legend. They proclaim proudly that they were the first to 200. They did another nod that is by far my favorite. They added a quest that says something to veteran players like me. It says, "Thank you. Thank you for playing this game for as long as you have." This quest is the main story finale for the Explorer classes. In the quest, you get to meet someone who's been alongside you this whole time, silently supporting you. And I don't just mean narratively either. You get to meet the Maple Goddess. The same Maple Goddess who has been buffing you every single time you press the button for Maple Warrior. That skill has been in the game for as long as I can remember. When I was young, I saw those who were super strong use it. and I was in awe. They had the blessing of a goddess to protect them. That's how much strength they held. When it was finally my turn to earn that skill, it felt like a badge of honor. I earned my blessing. And now, thanks to my faithfulness to the game itself, I get to meet that very goddess. When she thanks us for our help, it's not just the Maple goddess thanking our character. It's the devs standing with her that speak through our character straight to us. They're telling players like me that my time was worth it, that it did have meaning. All the hours spent grinding did have value. They are saying thank you so much for being there for us. And in return, we'll do our best to be there for you too. We might not be perfect, far from it at times, but we're trying to do this community right, to reward you all for being longtime fans of this incredible game. Hey, thanks for sticking around all the way to the end. I really appreciate you taking the time and watching what has been a passion project of mine. Even if you haven't played the game, I hope you walked away entertained, at the very least. I hope to make more videos like these on various games and things I'm passionate about. So now I'm going to do the YouTuber thing and ask that you please subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed it. I'm planning on making more videos like this one in the future, so stay tuned. But that is all from me from now. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart for watching the video, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one.